It was a quiet evening on Earth, a time when most people were winding down from their busy days. Little did anyone know, far above the atmosphere, something extraordinary was about to unfold. In the darkness of space, an alien ship silently descended toward the surface of Earth, hidden by the night sky. Its mission: to abduct a group of human children. To the aliens, humans were unpredictable, strange creatures, and the children held something they wanted, something they didn't fully understand. The ship hovered above a small rural town, its metallic surface gleaming in the light of distant stars. Inside, the crew of aliens prepared for the operation. They were calm, confident. After all, this wasn't the first time they had taken human children. Over the years, the aliens had collected several children from different planets, and each time they returned to their home galaxy with little trouble. They never imagined that this mission would be different. The aliens had studied humans for centuries, observing their behavior, their culture, their weaknesses. But they never realized how much they underestimated Earth's children. They had no idea what was about to happen. As the ship's door opened, a soft whirring sound filled the air. The aliens descended quickly, their bodies cloaked in darkness, their movements swift. They landed just outside the town, in a small park where children often played after school. The park was quiet now, with only a few straggling kids who had stayed out later than their parents would have liked. The aliens moved like shadows, creeping through the darkness, picking their targets carefully. They had come for a reason. The aliens wanted to take these children back to their ship, to study them, and to find out what made human children so special. But there was something the aliens didn't know. These children weren't just ordinary kids. There was something in the air, something that would change everything. As the aliens approached the children, one of the kids, a boy named Max, looked up. He felt an odd sensation, something cold and unfamiliar, but before he could say anything, he was lifted off the ground. His feet left the earth, and his world flipped upside down. The other children gasped, their eyes wide with fear, but no one could move. The aliens worked quickly, using their technology to stun the children, freezing them in place. One by one, the children were lifted into the air and pulled into the ship. The aliens were efficient, but they were also careful. The children were precious to them. They knew that these children could hold the key to unlocking the mysteries of humanity, a race they had never fully understood. Inside the ship, the children were placed into containment pods, each one floating inside a clear chamber. The aliens stood around them, speaking in their own language, discussing their next steps. They didn't realize it yet, but this was not going to be an ordinary abduction. These children, and the planet they came from, were about to teach the aliens a lesson they would never forget. The ship began to rise slowly, its engines humming as it ascended into the darkness of space. Below, the lights of Earth flickered as if the planet itself was unaware of the danger that had just come. But up in the cold expanse, the aliens felt a sense of triumph. They had done it again. They had captured the children of Earth, and nothing would stand in their way. However, as the ship moved further from Earth, the aliens noticed something strange. The air on the ship began to feel thicker, more charged. There was an energy here, something the ship's sensors couldn't detect. It was as though the children were somehow affecting the ship, even while unconscious. The crew exchanged confused glances. They had never encountered anything like this before. In one of the containment pods, Max began to stir. His eyes flickered open for a brief moment, just enough to see the glowing lights of the ship around him. He didn't know where he was, but something told him that he wasn't alone. His mind raced as he tried to understand what was happening. And as his thoughts raced, something strange began to happen. A small, almost imperceptible ripple moved through the ship's systems. At first, the aliens didn't notice, but the ship's engine sputtered for a brief moment, as if struggling to keep its course. The air seemed to thicken even more, and the children, even though they were still unconscious, began to emit a strange, almost magnetic energy. Back on Earth, No one knew yet what had happened. The world had no idea that the children were gone. But in space, the aliens were beginning to realize that their mission was not going as planned. They had taken the children, yes, but they hadn't anticipated the strange reaction they were now experiencing. The crew members exchanged uneasy glances. They had never dealt with this kind of energy before. The ship's sensors started to go haywire, flickering and beeping. It was as though something on board was interfering with their technology, something they could neither see nor understand. Max's eyes opened wider as the feeling grew stronger. He didn't know it yet, but his mind was starting to wake up to something extraordinary. The children were beginning to wake up to their true potential. And with that awakening, the ship's destiny would change. The aliens had made one simple mistake. They had underestimated Earth's children. As the ship flew deeper into space, the aliens had no idea that the Earth would soon be speaking back in a way they had never expected. The alien ship, sleek and ominous, continued its journey through the stars, far away from Earth. Inside, the children remained unconscious, each one floating in their individual containment pods. The strange energy emanating from them pulsed quietly, unnoticed by the crew. However, what the aliens did not know was that the children's very presence aboard the ship was causing something far beyond their understanding. A shift, a force that the ship's advanced systems couldn't comprehend. Max, the boy who had stirred earlier, was the first to feel the change. As he awoke, his eyes fluttered open. And for a moment, everything seemed strange and unfamiliar. He was floating in a transparent pod, suspended by some invisible force. The cold metallic walls of the alien ship surrounded him, and the low hum of the engines filled the air. But there was something else too, a tingling sensation at the back of his mind, as though a powerful presence was just beyond his reach, beckoning him. His first thought was fear. He didn't know where he was or why he was here. But then he remembered the strange light, the sudden feeling of weightlessness, and the other children who were with him. He tried to move, but his body felt heavy. His head throbbed, and for a moment, he couldn't tell what was real and what was just a dream. The ship's systems buzzed faintly, still disrupted by the mysterious force emanating from the children. Slowly, Max's senses began to clear, and as his mind began to awaken, a new awareness flooded in. He felt different, stronger. His body tingled as if some unknown power had begun to awaken inside him. He reached out, instinctively, and tried to move his fingers. The pod responded, shifting to accommodate his actions. The crew of the alien ship, far from understanding the true nature of the situation, continued their observations in the control room. The captain, a tall alien with translucent skin, stared intently at the readouts. "What is this interference?" he muttered under his breath, adjusting the ship's controls. Nothing like this had ever been encountered before. A younger alien technician, who had been monitoring the containment pods, turned to the captain with a look of concern. "Captain, the children. They're reacting to something. There's a strange energy growing inside them." The captain raised an eyebrow. "Energy? Explain." The technician looked uneasy. "I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like they're feeding off the ship's energy. It's like they're adapting to our systems. I'm not sure it's possible." The captain frowned. "Keep monitoring. Let me know if anything changes." But the changes were already happening. Max's mind, now fully awake, felt an unfamiliar connection to the others in the pods. His thoughts seemed to reach out, and it was as though he could feel the minds of the children next to him. He had never experienced anything like this before. He didn't understand it, but it felt like something was happening within him, something far beyond human comprehension. Suddenly, a series of beeps echoed through the ship. The ship's engines stuttered again, this time more violently. Sparks flew from the control panel, and the entire ship seemed to shake. The captain, startled, turned to the technician. "Get it under control," he barked. But the technician's face had gone pale. "It's the children. The energy is growing. Fast. It's interfering with the ship's systems. The captain's eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible. How could they? Before he could finish, a loud crack rang through the ship, and the lights flickered. The entire ship was now under siege from an unknown force. The aliens' carefully engineered systems, designed for intergalactic travel and control, were suddenly overwhelmed by something no one could understand. Max's body, now fully awake, throbbed with an unseen power. As his thoughts reached out, he realized that the other children were experiencing the same thing. There was a bond now, something that tied them together. It was not just a physical presence. It was something mental, something that connected their minds to each other. The more Max focused on it, the more he realized it wasn't just the ship's systems that were being affected. It was the entire energy around them. The ship wasn't just malfunctioning. It was losing control. He reached out, instinctively, trying to understand what was happening. And that was when he felt it, a surge of power that flowed from his mind to the others. It was as if their collective consciousness was waking up. The children were no longer simply passive prisoners. They were becoming something else entirely. In the control room, panic set in. The captain was shouting orders as the ship's hull groaned under the pressure of the force. The children were unleashing. The ship began to tilt, and alarms screamed throughout the vessel. The technician, now sweating with fear, turned to the captain. "We need to stop them. Now, before it's too late." The captain's face twisted with frustration. "How? There's nothing we can do. We've never seen anything like this before." As the children's minds began to unite, they collectively willed the ship to stop. Max felt the power in his own mind surge with the strength of 100 human wills. The others, even in their unconscious states, were pulling together, and Earth's energy was radiating through the ship like an unstoppable force. The aliens had no idea that they were up against something far greater than they had ever imagined. They had captured human children, yes, but they had made a grave mistake. These children were not powerless. They were not just subjects to be studied. They were the key to a power that could change the fate of the entire galaxy. And as the ship began to shudder violently, the children, now aware of their combined strength, prepared to show the aliens the true meaning of humanity's strength. This was just the beginning. The aliens had no idea what they were about to face. The alien ship shook violently as though caught in a storm, but it was not nature that was causing this chaos. It was the unexpected reaction from the children they had captured. The crew, still trying to assess what was happening, were now visibly panicking. In the control room, the captain, who had once prided himself on the calm and control of his mission, was now frantic, his eyes darting between flashing screens and malfunctioning systems. "Activate the containment fields," the captain shouted. His voice trembled with a mix of fear and disbelief. "We need to contain them. Now." But the technician, whose face was pale with terror, was unable to respond. The systems were not responding. Every time he tried to activate the containment protocols, the ship's systems would glitch, throwing out error messages, as if the very fabric of the ship itself was being stretched beyond its limits. "Captain, it's no use," the technician finally managed to stammer. "The children, they're controlling the ship. It's like their minds are linked to the ship's energy." The captain stood frozen, his mouth dry. The thought that the humans, mere children, could control their ship, a vessel built to withstand the harshest conditions of space travel, was unthinkable. But the evidence was clear. The ship's artificial intelligence was failing, its commands ignored as the energy inside the ship grew stronger, building with every passing moment. Meanwhile, in the containment chamber, Max and the other children were starting to wake. Their eyes opened slowly, but the moment they did, they felt something they had never experienced before. A shared connection. Their minds were no longer just their own. They were part of something much larger, something greater than any of them could have understood. Max could feel their thoughts, their fears, their hopes, all of it mingled within him. It wasn't just his mind anymore. It was as though he was part of a living, breathing collective consciousness. And with this newfound power came an overwhelming sense of responsibility. As Max stood in his pod, reaching out toward the others, his thoughts felt like a pulse that reached out across the ship, as though communicating with the very walls of the alien vessel. He could sense their fear, but he could also feel something else, their anger. These children, who had been taken from their homes, were no longer afraid. They were angry, and their anger was slowly transforming into something far more dangerous. The ship trembled once more, and this time it was no mere vibration. It was as though the very heart of the vessel had begun to beat out of control. The lights flickered, and the once calm hum of the ship's engines became an unsettling growl. Every alien on board could feel it. Something had changed. Something had awakened. Max's eyes locked onto the other children, their faces now illuminated by the growing energy around them. Each child was suspended in their individual pods, but the way they floated now, it wasn't just due to the ship's artificial gravity. There was something else at play. They were no longer just passive captives. They were a united force, one with the ship and with each other. As Max reached out, his mind focused on the alien technology that had once held them prisoner. He felt the controls, the complicated systems that had trapped them in their containment pods, and with a burst of concentration, he sent a single command into the ship's neural network. The ship's control systems instantly malfunctioned, the metal walls of the chamber bending and cracking as the walls shifted and groaned. The walls around Max began to crack open like they were made of fragile glass, as if the ship's technology itself couldn't hold up against the sudden influx of human energy. The systems that had once confined them were now turning against the very beings who had created them. Max's breath quickened, the intensity of the moment overwhelming him. He felt the pulse of energy grow stronger, the combined minds of all the children reaching a boiling point. The aliens had no idea what they had just unleashed. They thought they were dealing with human children, fragile, weak, and easy to contain. They were wrong. From his vantage point, Max could now see the other children's eyes open. Their minds were linked, and it was as if they were speaking without words. He could feel their thoughts, his thoughts, merge into one. They were no longer mere captives, trapped on a foreign ship. They were something more, a force, and now, that force was fighting back. Suddenly, an alien guard rushed into the room, his eyes wide with confusion and panic. He hadn't been prepared for this. He was ready for a rescue mission, to secure the children and reassert control over the situation. But now, it was too late. The power that the children wielded was already overwhelming. Max's mind surged with power as he focused on the guard. His thoughts shot out like a burst of energy, and before the alien could react, the guard froze. It was as if an invisible force was holding him in place, and for a brief moment, Max could feel the confusion, the fear, and the shock in the alien's mind. This was no ordinary human child. This was someone far beyond anything the aliens had ever faced. The guard trembled, his weapon slipping from his grasp, as he tried to regain control of his own body. But Max's mind, now linked with the others, was too powerful. The guard couldn't move. He couldn't even think clearly. His mind was blocked, overwhelmed by the combined force of the children's thoughts. In the control room, the captain watched in horror as the ship's systems continued to break down. The energy readings were off the charts. Whatever was happening inside the containment chamber was beyond anything they had ever encountered. The captain realized, with a sinking feeling in his gut, that the children had become something far more dangerous than they could have ever anticipated. They're not children anymore, he whispered, his voice barely audible. And with that, the fate of the galaxy changed forever. The alien captain, once a figure of power and confidence, now stood at the command deck of the ship, his hand shaking as he tried to regain control of the situation. He had never anticipated this. This level of rebellion, this power from mere human children. What was even worse, the ship's systems were still unresponsive, and nothing could stop the increasing chaos. The walls of the ship shook violently again, sending a ripple of fear throughout the alien crew. They knew what that meant. Max and the other children were no longer just inside the ship. They had become the ship. The energy of their minds now flowed through the vessel like blood through veins, amplifying everything, every thought, every emotion. And as they grew stronger, so did their ability to manipulate the ship. The children, still suspended in their pods, now directed their collective energy to one thing: freedom. They had been taken. They had been kidnapped from their homes, treated like prisoners, but no more. They were about to make their captors feel what it was like to be powerless. Max could feel the ship's heart beat in time with his own. He could sense every corner of the vessel, the engine room, the weapons lockers, even the distant control room where the captain tried to salvage what was left of his crew's dignity. He could feel everything. And with the other children, they reached out and took control. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship as the weapons systems powered up. The guns, massive and capable of destroying entire fleets, had been activated. But the children weren't aiming at just anyone. No, they aimed their power at the ship's systems. With a flick of a thought, Max pushed the controls of the weapons systems into overdrive. The massive cannons began to spin in place, charging up with energy. The alien crew, still in the control room, watched in panic as the ship's own weapons turned on them. "Captain, we can't stop them." The technician screamed as the weapons aimed directly at the heart of the ship. The crew was now at the mercy of the very weapons they had used to take the children. "Shut them down. Shut them down now," the captain barked, but it was too late. Max had already severed the connection between the ship's command center and the weapons system. The cannons fired, but instead of being used to defend the ship, they turned inward, blasting holes into the vessel's own hull. The ship was starting to crumble from within. The children's power had shifted from defense to destruction, and now, with each passing moment, the ship's fate became more and more sealed. "Can anyone hear me?" The captain shouted into his comm, but there was only static in response. The once powerful alien fleet was now falling apart at the seams, a victim of their own arrogance. Max and the other children had taken back what was theirs. They had broken the system, and now they were ready for the next step. "Let's finish this," Max thought, his voice echoing in the minds of the others. With a shared thought, the children began to move. One by one, they broke free from their pods, no longer bound by any restraints. They moved in perfect unison, their minds united in purpose. Together, they were stronger than any weapon the aliens could create. And now, they were ready to face the enemy. Outside, the battle had begun to rage in full force. Alien ships, powerful and massive, moved to attack the human fleet. But what they didn't know was that humanity's fleet had been waiting, hidden, prepared for this moment. And as the first of the alien ships closed in on the human forces, they realized too late that the humans were no longer the weak and vulnerable species they had once thought them to be. The human fleet, equipped with advanced technology, moved in perfect formation, their weapons locked and ready. They had been watching, waiting for this very moment. The alien ships might have been powerful, but they had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to fight back. Max and the children knew that this wasn't just about taking back their freedom. It was about something much larger, fighting for the future, for the very survival of humanity. And they would make sure that no one would forget the day the children of Earth rose up against their captors. With the alien ship continuing to fall apart around them, Max felt a sense of finality. The crew had failed. The once mighty empire that had thought they could control Earth was now crumbling at the hands of the very beings they had taken as prisoners. Max, the children, and the humans had proven one undeniable truth: Earth was not to be underestimated. "Ready," Max thought, his mind synchronized with the others. With a final push of power, Max sent a signal to the human fleet, and within moments, the first alien ship began to fall from the sky, crashing into the stars. And as it did, the other ships followed, as if all were fated to fall together. The galactic empire was crumbling, and the children of Earth were the ones who had brought it down. Max could feel it, a deep satisfaction that spread through him, through the minds of the others. They had won. They had reclaimed what was theirs. And the galaxy would never forget their names. The space around them was alive with chaos. Alien ships, once the pinnacle of advanced technology, were now nothing more than debris floating in the vast void of space. The once invincible fleet of the Galactic Empire was crumbling, and the children of Earth, who had been taken, imprisoned, and underestimated, were the ones responsible for its downfall. Max stood at the center of the now-controlled alien ship, his body trembling with the immense power that surged through him and his companions. The ship had been completely disabled, but that didn't mean the war was over. No, this was just the beginning. The remnants of the Empire were still out there, and they wouldn't go down without a fight. As Max looked at the other children, he knew that they shared the same thought. This battle wasn't won yet, but it was close. So close, and as much as it terrified him, Max also felt something else, something that made his heart beat faster. It was the thrill of the fight. He could feel it in his blood, the same rush he had felt the moment they first used their powers to disable the ship. It was a feeling he could not ignore. "We've done the impossible," Max said, his voice loud and clear. "But it's not over yet. We've shown them what Earth is capable of. But we need to end this, once and for all." The others nodded, their faces a mixture of determination and exhaustion. They had already taken down one ship, but the enemy fleet was massive, and they had only begun to face the might of the Empire. Out in the distance, the human fleet moved in sync, ships as far as the eye could see, from the smallest warships to massive battleships, gathered in an unspoken formation. This was humanity's last stand, their final chance to prove that they would not be crushed, that Earth was not a world that could be wiped off the galactic map. Max turned to the remaining children. "We'll push forward together. Let's end this. For everyone we've lost. For Earth." With a shared thought, they all moved. Their powers, stronger than ever, surged through them as they began to harness the energy of the ships around them. Each of them could now control not only their ship but the fleets surrounding them. As they reached out with their minds, they felt the presence of the enemy, alien ships that were far superior in firepower, but whose minds were no match for the collective force of the children of Earth. As the battle began, the alien ships attempted to fire their weapons, but it was useless. The children manipulated the weapon systems, twisting the energy back toward the attackers. The first few shots backfired, sending entire sections of enemy ships into flames. Max could hear the shocked gasps of the alien commanders in his mind. They hadn't expected this. They hadn't expected Earth to strike back like this. They hadn't realized that the children, the innocents they had abducted, were the true strength of Earth. The human fleet was now fully engaged. The alien ships, outnumbered and outclassed, tried to flee. But it was too late. The humans had already anticipated their move. Max raised his hand, sending a mental pulse to the ship's weapon systems. The enormous energy cannons mounted on the remaining ships charged up in sync with his thoughts. "Target the enemy flagships," he ordered through his mind. There was no more need for words. Every child's mind now understood what needed to be done. One by one, the flagship vessels of the Empire exploded into massive fireballs, their once proud structures disintegrating in space. The aliens had never known the kind of power that the children of Earth possessed. They had thought themselves invincible, but now they were learning that humanity had a strength that could never be crushed. But still, there were more enemies to deal with. The remnants of the alien fleet were not easily deterred. Their ships, battered but still operational, fought to regroup and retaliate. "We've almost won," Max whispered to the others. "Let's finish this." With a synchronized push, the children focused all their energy into one massive wave. It rippled across the battlefield like a shockwave, disintegrating the remaining ships in its wake. Alien fighters tried to fight back, but their attacks were futile against the mental storm the children unleashed. The galaxy was witnessing a sight unlike any other. Humanity, once believed to be weak and insignificant, now stood tall, dominating the battlefield with unimaginable force. Their power wasn't just in their weapons or their ships. It was in their minds, their unity, and their will to fight for their survival. Max could feel it. There were only a few enemy ships left, drifting aimlessly in space. One by one, the final remnants of the Empire fell. The battle had been won. But as the children looked out at the silent battlefield, they knew this was only the beginning. The Galactic Empire had been destroyed, but the universe would not simply forget Earth's wrath. No, there would be more challenges ahead, more battles to fight. The children had proven something important today. That humanity, once thought weak and fragile, was far from it. Max turned to the others. We've made history. We've shown them who Earth is. We've shown them who we are. The children nodded, exhaustion visible on their faces, but pride shining in their eyes. They had won, and the galaxy would never forget what happened the day humanity proved that no one, not even the most powerful empire in the universe, could ever conquer Earth. The galaxy was forever changed, and humanity had just begun its rise. The silence of space was deafening. The children stood on the bridge of the alien ship, their eyes wide with exhaustion and awe. The battle was over, but the victory felt bittersweet. They had crushed the Empire. They had obliterated the aliens who had taken their families and taken Earth's future away. But the cost had been unimaginable. The galaxy would never be the same again. Max looked out through the ship's viewports, watching as the shattered remains of the once feared alien fleet drifted away into space. He could still feel the energy of the last wave of attacks pulsing through his mind. The shockwaves of their power were still echoing through the very fabric of space. The alien empire had been left in ruins. "Do you think they'll come back for us?" whispered Lily, one of the older children who had been part of the rebellion. Her voice was calm, but Max could tell she was just as shaken as he was. "I don't know," Max replied, his eyes scanning the horizon. "We've dealt them a blow they never saw coming, but I'm sure they won't give up easily. The galaxy isn't just going to forget what happened here." His mind raced as he thought of the consequences of their actions. They had become a symbol of rebellion, of defiance against an empire that believed itself untouchable. They had proven the might of Earth, but at what cost? The power they had unleashed had shattered the status quo. It would draw attention, and not all of it would be positive. "We've changed everything," Max said, almost to himself. "The galaxy can't ignore us anymore." Lily nodded slowly. "They won't forget what we've done, but that doesn't mean they'll be grateful." Max didn't respond right away. He couldn't. He understood what she meant. The Galactic Empire was gone, but that didn't mean the other factions of the galaxy would welcome humanity with open arms. In fact, some would see them as a threat, a new power in the galaxy, one that wasn't afraid to fight back, one that wasn't afraid to destroy anything in its path. "Well," Max said, breaking the silence, "we've done what we came here to do, but now we have to figure out what comes next. For all of us." The other children were silent, and Max could feel their minds weighing the same questions. What next? They had defeated the Empire, but the battle for Earth's place in the galaxy was far from over. Would they continue to fight for Earth's future, or would they return home, hoping to rebuild and find peace? Just as the thought crossed Max's mind, the communication system of the ship flickered to life. A message, an encrypted transmission, came through, directed at them. Max was the first to step forward. He activated the comms, and the voice that came through was low and grave, echoing across the ship's bridge. "This is Admiral Karen of the United Galactic Front," the voice said. "We have been watching your actions with great interest. You have dealt a significant blow to the Galactic Empire, and your strength is not something we can ignore. We wish to discuss what comes next. We believe there is a place for Earth in the new galactic order." Max's heart raced. The message was clear. The galaxy was watching them. Their power was undeniable now. And while their victory had been swift, the real challenge was just beginning. "We're listening," Max said, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside him. The screen flickered again, and a new image appeared. It was an alien, humanoid in shape, but with skin that seemed to shimmer like metal. Its eyes glowed faintly with an unsettling intelligence. "We propose an alliance," the alien said, its voice smooth and confident. "Earth's strength and your unique abilities could be a force unlike any other. Together, we could reshape the galaxy. We could ensure peace, but only if you join us. In return, we offer you protection, resources, and a place of honor within the new galactic structure." Max stared at the alien, his mind whirling. An alliance? The idea was tempting, but Max knew the truth. They had just fought for Earth's freedom, for their right to survive. How could they trust someone else after everything they had been through? How could they trust anyone from the very empire that had tried to control them? "We'll think about it," Max said, his voice calm. "But don't expect an answer right away." The image of the alien flickered once more before the transmission ended. The silence that followed was heavy. The children exchanged glances, each one of them processing what had just happened. "This is huge," Lily whispered. "They want to make us part of their empire, an alliance." Max took a deep breath, trying to calm the thoughts racing through his mind. It was a lot to take in. They had just defeated an empire, and now they were being offered a chance to join a different power. An alliance. It was hard to know who to trust anymore. "We'll need to decide carefully," Max said. "This could change everything. But I don't think we can just accept it without thinking about the consequences." The children nodded in agreement. They were no longer just survivors. They were leaders now, and the choices they made would shape the future of humanity and the galaxy. The war was over, but the battle for Earth's place in the universe was just beginning. The days following the transmission were filled with uncertainty. Max stood on the observation deck of the ship, staring out at the vastness of space, his thoughts clouded. The galaxy was a massive, complicated place, and Earth had just made its presence known in a way no one could ignore. The invitation for an alliance from the United Galactic Front was both an opportunity and a burden. The children, now more than just survivors, had to decide what came next for them and for Earth. It wasn't just about fighting anymore. It was about establishing their future, and the weight of that responsibility was enormous. Max had always thought of Earth as a small, fragile planet, one that would never stand a chance against the bigger, more powerful civilizations of the galaxy. But they had proved everyone wrong. The power they wielded now wasn't just military strength. It was something deeper, something the galaxy wasn't prepared for. As the days went on, more messages came through from the United Galactic Front. They were eager, persistent, and the offers kept getting better. They'd promised Earth protection, technology, and a place in the new galactic hierarchy. But Max knew better than to believe in easy promises. After everything they had fought for, how could they trust anyone from the galaxy's past? The same galaxy that had tried to erase them. "We're being offered power," Lily said one day as she joined Max on the observation deck. "A chance to take control of our future. But at what cost?" Max turned to her, his brow furrowed. "That's the question, isn't it? We have to be careful not to get swept up in their promises. We fought to protect Earth. We can't let anyone decide our fate for us." Lily nodded, understanding the weight of Max's words. "And what about the rest of the galaxy? Do we ignore them and keep to ourselves?" Max took a deep breath, feeling the pressure of their situation. They couldn't just shut themselves off from the galaxy. The war had changed everything. The galaxy was watching them, and they had made a powerful enemy in the Galactic Empire. Hiding away on Earth was no longer an option. They had to decide where they stood in the galaxy. "We'll need allies," Max said quietly. "But we need to be smart about it. We can't rush into any decisions. We'll need to understand who we're dealing with before we make any moves." Lily watched him thoughtfully. "You're right, but time is running out. The galaxy won't wait for us to make up our minds." Max knew she was right. The situation was urgent. Earth couldn't afford to waste time. Their enemies weren't gone. The Galactic Empire had fallen, but other factions still roamed the galaxy, watching, waiting. And the United Galactic Front, with their offers of peace and power, had their own agenda. "We'll make our decision soon," Max said, determination in his voice, but not out of fear or pressure. "We'll take our time, understand what's at stake, and then we'll move forward. But we'll do it on our terms." And so, the children began their deliberations, each of them weighing the options, considering the consequences. It wasn't just about what was best for Earth, it was about what kind of legacy they would leave. The choices they made now would echo through the galaxy, shaping Earth's place in the universe for generations to come. The days turned into weeks, and the decision remained undecided. Meanwhile, the United Galactic Front waited, knowing they were close to securing their alliance with humanity. But Max and his group were not easily swayed. They understood the stakes better than anyone. The galaxy was full of hidden dangers, and no one could be trusted without question. Then, one day, another transmission came through. It was not from the United Galactic Front, but from an unexpected source. A message from the remnants of the Galactic Empire, transmitted through an encrypted channel. The voice on the other end was cold, calculating. "Humans," the voice said, "you think you've won, but this is only the beginning. The galaxy will never forget what you've done. You have made an enemy of more than just the Galactic Empire. We are the last remnants of a dying order, but we are not alone, and we will have our revenge." Max's heart sank as he heard the words. It was clear, the war wasn't over. The galaxy would never be the same again. Their victory had only sparked the beginning of something far bigger. An even darker war was on the horizon. But this time, Max wasn't afraid. The children weren't afraid. They had faced the impossible and triumphed before. They had stood up to the universe, and they had shown the galaxy that Earth could not be wiped out. They had proved that no matter how many enemies came against them, they would fight back. Max turned to Lily and the others, his eyes filled with resolve. "This is it," he said. "Our fight isn't over. It's just begun. And we will not back down. We will protect Earth. We will protect our future. And we will make the galaxy understand. Humanity is not to be underestimated." The ship's crew gathered around, their faces hardened with the same determination. They had no idea what the future held, but one thing was certain: they would face it together. And so, the journey of humanity into the stars continued. With the threat of the Galactic Empire looming and new alliances on the horizon, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The universe had made a grave mistake by underestimating them.